Well, hello, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. Hope you're having a fantastic day. As usual, got a tutorial for you today. We're going to look at the power of some simple automation to make your mix dynamic, engaging, and full of impact and punch without stealing all the life out of it through too much compression or something like that. This is a huge issue because we want mixes that have punch, that have life, that you just, when you crank them up, you just feel so much energy. And drama, it's a good word to use maybe, but we tend to overuse things like compressors and limiters, which actually can create energy in your mix. I use compression all the time. We talked about that earlier on the blog about using compressors to create power and punch. If you go overboard, you actually ironically take away the power and the punch. So compression alone isn't the secret. One of the best secrets you can use in mixing is volume riding. Riding your faders, adjusting the volume automation periodically on certain tracks throughout the song. And I wanted to bring this up because earlier this week, I mentioned the Sound on Sound article with Andy Wallace, legendary mixer who mixed Nirvana's Nevermind. He's done Foo Fighters, Coldplay, Linkin Park, Slayer, Guns N' Roses. He mixes a lot of hard-hitting rock stuff, and he's just a master at it. And in that interview in Sound on Sound, and I wrote about a little bit on my blog, so I pulled out some of my favorite of his tips and secrets. One of them is he does a lot of volume automation. He rides faders to create that impact. People say, is it compression? What is your secret to getting that power? And he says it's riding the volume faders. And he talked about riding a note on the bass up or down here, or bringing up certain things, a few dB in the chorus, or bringing them down. He's creating more drama in the mix. He's like a master builder, crafting certain things. And I liken it to a movie director who wants to point your attention to a certain thing on the screen for a moment. And we can do that in the sonic world through volume automation. So today I thought it'd be a really great way to just show you an example of what that can look like. There's a lot of ways I use volume automation to make mixes pop, but here's just one example of a couple things you can do. So here's a mix that, for the most part, I got levels where I wanted it and got compression where I wanted it. But as the song progresses, to make the impact felt where I need it to be and have complete control over the mix so it's energizing and engaging and interesting, I had to use volume automation for a few elements. So here's three specific elements I want to show you where I used riding the fader to create that. And this might give you some ideas of what you can do if you're maybe not using automation currently, or if you are just maybe on the lead vocal, think about using it on all sorts of other tracks as well. So here's a section of the guitars where I've used automation going into the chorus. If I flip over to the volume automation lane in Pro Tools, these two tracks here, this purple one and then the green track, these two ones here are duplicate guitars left and right.
My faith is small.
So those are the ones I'm looking at right now. And you can see right before this line, which is the chorus, this is the volume automation going up about 1.5 dB. Pretty slight. This could be up a little bit more, but this is what's going on right here. Watch what happens.
Oh, but your strength's on display. In spite of me.
So the automation is happening right on the brown brown where the riff opens up to chords. If we solo out the guitar, here's what's going on. Then it goes back to the normal level. This could be more dramatic if you want. It sounds like the right even picks up louder than the left. I could automate that a little bit more. But I've just taken the volume automation, and it's as if I'm riding the faders. If I were doing this in real time, I'd have my fingers on these two guitar faders, and when we got to that part, to brown brown, leading into the chorus, and I want that energy to pick up, it's like my hands just want to ride up. If I were mixing a live show, I would probably want to ride that part of the guitars up because it brings power and impact, and it leads you into the chorus. Without it, it seemed a little underwhelming to me. So I just rode the volume fader up there. Let's listen to it one more time.
Oh, but your strength's on display. In spite of me.
So it just causes the listener to pay a little bit more attention to the guitar there. Pretty simple and mild example. Here's another one coming into a bridge where there is a really heavily overdriven lead guitar. This guitar comes in and it's doing the screeching the pick across the strings, and it's making its entrance known right here. And you can hear and see how bizarre that is, where I've basically taken the volume down of that screeching because it's a little annoying, and then turned up the volume of the, because that is really cool. And that's sort of like the, hey, pay attention to me. I'm about to be the featured piece in this bridge. And then I ride the volume quickly right back down to its normal acceptable volume with everything else in the bridge. So by itself, if you take out this automation, two things happen. One, the screeching is a little bit too loud. Yeah, you can hear it, but I don't need to hear that much of it. And two, you lose the you wouldn't know it's there had you not heard it before. Bring the automation back and you get more control. Again, I'm telling the listener where to pay attention, which creates impact and power. But if I left that guitar at a static volume, even if it's the best volume for 85% of the song, it's not perfect for 100% of the song. This little bit of volume riding on the fader allows me to create that impact and that power, that volume that I want it to be at for the, but then I don't want it to get out of hand when it starts playing the main riff. I want it to be nice and controlled, which is where its bass line is with a compressor and an EQ. Final example on this mix is drum overheads, one of my favorites, and I stole this from Andy Wallace like 7 years ago, and I heard another interview from him. He still must do this today. But one thing he said he did on Nirvana's Nevermind and lots of records is he'll turn up the overheads 3 or 4 dB in a chorus or in a bridge when you want more hype, more energy, because you just get a little bit more cymbals, which is instant energy, and you also get a little bit more top end, which changes the dynamic a little bit. So here is, after that breakdown, the chorus comes back in. But then the chorus is going to repeat, and he's going to open up to like hitting the crash on the quarter notes, and there's more vocals, and it's like the most epic part of the song. I've added things in the arrangement, so you'll hear the arrangement get bigger by itself, which is a good part of why arranging is critical to good mixing. But there still wasn't enough of the crash in the drums, so I've turned up the drums a couple dB here. So take a listen. This is subtle, but here's the overheads. More of that crash, right? If you take away that volume ride, let's delete that. It's as if I just kept it at the same volume that it's been all song-wise, which is perfect for most of the song. Let's see what happens to that crashing. Underwhelming, right? It should be bigger there. Bring back the automation. You get more crash. So it's a subtle, it's like a lift. It's a subtle lift. The listener doesn't know what's happening. It should sound normal to the listener. It should sound like a natural thing. You would expect to hear more crash there. You would expect the energy to lift because it's the most rockin' part of this particular song. And yet, if we do a great job of mixing, we get all the EQ and compression right, the volumes right, the gain staging right, the panning right, maybe a little bit of reverb and delay right. And even if we ride the lead vocal, which I really suggest you do to make sure every note is heard and every word is heard, there might still be moments of the song where the volume you have a track at or a note you have the track at, bass guitar, guitars, keyboard, drums, overheads, whatever, might not be the optimal place for that moment where you really want to draw attention to it in a good way. And by taking an extra 15 minutes in your mix at the end to go back from start to finish and think through, if I could put my fingers on the faders and ride something in real time live to feel a bit more, to push a little bit of energy here on the drums, or maybe it's a drum fill and I just want that snare to pop or those toms to poke out a little bit more just for those couple of those hits, or that bass note's getting swallowed up and I really want to feel that on the downbeat, that's a perfect candidate for grabbing your volume fader or your volume automation in your DAW, which is a super powerful thing, and just riding it up 3 dB, 4 dB, or riding it down if there's a note that's too loud or a hit that's too loud, just ride it down for a second to perfectly place things so that in the end, when you step back and press play or render out your mix, what the listener gets is a dynamic, powerful mix that's also controlled, and at every moment of the song you hear exactly what you need to hear when you need to hear it at the level you need to hear it. You don't have to spend forever on automation. Don't ever get lost in this stage of the game because it's all icing on the cake. It's not the bulk of your mix, but it is a very simple and fun way to get a little bit more power and control without killing all the dynamics with too much compression. So yeah, Andy Wallace is a genius. Take some tips from him, and hopefully that'll give you some ideas on your next mix with some volume riding. Thanks again for watching. Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. Join the mailing list if you want more tips, tricks, and action in your inbox. Subscribe to the videos so you can know the moment one of these videos comes out live, and so you'll be up to date on all the cool tutorials and tricks we're doing here on the site. And most importantly, go have some fun making some great music this week. We'll talk to you soon.